Hey guys!
Hi.
We're finally back with Marriage Over.
Yeah.
It's an amazing
I'm
thing.
only here because we had a fight before this.
Yes,
I had to fight, and I lost.
to get the fight over.
To not do this video. But
Exactly.
I lost. I
You
lost.
But
Yeah.
we
It was close, but I lost.
yeah, and we did have a fight
Yeah.
right before we were gonna record the same episode. Remember, we were kind of like fighting.
Were we? I don't
Yeah, we
remember.
were. Of course, you don't remember.
No,
You're not a girl.
I have a blackout when these things
Girls
happen.
are. Anyway, guys, this is Marriage Over, and this is our installment on fights.
It's marriage over. It's not marriage is over.
No, marriage
Oh,
over.
okay.
I mean, our marriage is not over.
No,
that I
it's
know
not.
of.
No.
It's not over.
No, we're here. Yeah.
So,
we're here.
anyway, we're still here, barely hanging. But we're here.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, but today I thought we are going to talk about fights, and I found a real good song to talk about fights.
Oh, like this is my fight song, my take back my life song. No, I can't sing, by the way, but I like that song.
Well, no, that wasn't the
No.
fight song, but I
Oh,
think
okay.
that's. He's talking about this is my fight
Rachel
song.
Platten.
Na 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 na. I forgot the lyrics song, and I really don't care what anybody believes.
This is the time.
Cause I still have a lot of fire left in me.
This is the time when everybody stops watching the video.
Okay,
so.
sorry. The real song, oh, by the way, that was not special effect. That's our son in the background laughing at us. And if you hear a lot of clickety click, 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 it's because he's playing Minecraft.
And we're bad parents because he has blue hair right now.
I am an excellent mom. He has blue hair. Oh, our daughter.
There's my daughter, and she has blue hair too.
Hey!
You heard the snort, but that was me.
Yeah.
Why were you snorting at me? See?
Yes.
But did you hear your father?
Yeah.
I said that we were gonna do a song about fighting, and he thought about fight song. But that's not really the song.
As
we're
soon as
doing.
this video's over, there's gonna be a big fight in this house.
He wants us to go faster, so we'll go faster. Sorry, guys. This is just McIntyre's Uncensored, as we always do. We don't rehearse this because we want to just be us, which is quite a very scary proposition.
Yeah.
But let's go into fight. The
Okay,
fight.
go ahead. Let her know.
So the song, the real song that I thought I would use is this amazing song that For King and Country released last year. It's called Pioneers, and if you guys haven't heard that song, please look it up. It's a beautiful song, and the video is even better. It's just beautiful visuals. So I thought that we would use this because this song, it does a fantastic job capturing what happens with us couples. You start your marriage, you think you're invincible, you think your love is stronger than anything and nothing can possibly defeat you. And all of a sudden, little things that before you overlooked start creeping in, and now they bother you and they're pretty annoying. What kind of things about me annoy you?
We don't have time on this video for that. We don't.
Give an example, a few examples. I'll return the courtesy.
Well, I mean, I think one of the biggest causes of fights is misinterpretation.
Like what?
Well, you say something and the other person doesn't understand what your point is, and they take it the other way, and then and it just snowballs, and before you know it, it's a fight.
Something that I really, that makes our fights accelerate is that I misinterpret and then I get mad at him and then he gets mad at me because I got mad at him. So he like gives me like this stonewall kind of a thing.
Well, it's called running for cover.
But the thing is
Yeah.
that I am very good at filling the blanks.
Yeah.
So when he runs for cover, he leaves me alone, he leaves me isolated. I start filling the blanks, and I fill in the blanks with things that may not be true, but...
See, and you know, she several times in our life, she's watched the video series Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage.
You have to.
Yeah, and Mark Gungor in that series talks about every man has a nothing box. His brain is filled with boxes, and they're all in a nice, neat place, and the boxes don't touch. we do this at one point, then we move on to this, and every man has a nothing box. And when the man is in a nothing box, the woman should leave the boy alone. Okay? So let him recover from whatever you go through. Give him time, and he'll come around, he'll come back. But women don't like that. They want to get into the nothing box with him, which is a no-no. You don't get into the nothing box.
Yeah, but you also know.
You let him process things. But she wants to ask questions. What is going on? What are you thinking? How are you feeling? And
I don't want to know what you're feeling about the
we're
big
about ready to have a fight right
of
now.
the universe. I want you to tell me what you're thinking about the specific situation at hand. And he allows too much time, and then I fester, and my Hispanic fieriness starts boiling.
Right, which makes me want to run further.
Mm-hmm. It's a dynamic, and we have it. And after almost 21 years of marriage, we don't completely have it down.
No.
We're still working it out.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just better to hold your tongue until things blow over, because saying something is like throwing gasoline on a fire.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just have to learn to be patiently quiet, even though you're screaming, you want to say something.
And sometimes it's not a good idea to be quiet, particularly if the other party is extending the opportunity to talk. I think that you have to find a nice way to say, hey, I'm not ready now, but I hear you, I understand that you're hurt. We can talk about this, maybe not right now, but I promise you I think reassuring the other person, right, is very good, rather than just saying, I don't want to talk. Mm-hmm. Right? And we've both done that to each other. Like, I don't want to talk, and that's never a good idea. But let's go with the song, because I think a lot of good things are going to come out of this song. It's really dramatic, huh? He's laying all that inside. He's lonely. So the song starts saying, I am here, you are there, lying side by side, out of touch, out of reach, in the great divide, parallel lines. What does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, you can be taking up the same space, but be very far away from each other.
Exactly.
In your mind.
Yeah.
In your heart.
And I think that one of the most horrible things when we fight is that we can just keep going through the motions when there's really a great divide. And the song says parallel lines, because you can be going, he's here, you're there, and you are never meeting. It's just here, and it's so easy to let that go on and on and on, right? And it can eventually, if you don't deal with it, it can eventually become a place where you're very comfortable. Like, oh, I can do without him, or I can do without her, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have a lot to say about that.
I'm sorry, my mind was wandering. I was in my nothing box.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna kick that box open, maybe.
And it's been a long day.
It has.
Our cars have both died, by the way.
Yeah, and it's a
real
Sunday.
fun. It's real fun.
And it's a Sunday, and we have 2 services.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been
I
wiped
actually
out.
took a long nap in the afternoon, which I never do.
Yeah. Well, when you marry an old guy, they do need a lot of naps. Mm-hmm. So please, I mean, like sometimes staying away is good, but it needs to be short-lived, because this great divide, it's not good. I mean, God said in Genesis, it is not good for man to be alone. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you can be together but alone. And if you leave your partner alone, then you're kind of opening the door to resentment. You're opening the door to the enemy that can come and send the wrong person their path at a moment where they're at a very low point. Just make sure that it doesn't go on and on and on, right? Even if they're fireworks, sometimes I tell John, sometimes you have to let the fireworks go and then it's over, and then it was put out there and then it's done, right? Okay, so it keeps going. He's lonely. Hear the rain, count the drops on the window pane, wide awake, stalemate. Why do we play this game? Oh God, I hate this game. And I'll go first on this one. I hate fighting with this man. When I fight with John, I am empty, I am sad, it's very hard for me to focus. I love this poetic visual of a fight because they can hear the rain to the point where they can count the drops because you're awake and because nothing is going well when you're fighting, when you're separated. It is not the perfect way a relationship should go. It's what fights separate us, right?
Yeah.
You have anything else to say about that separation? And do you think it's a game? Because this says, why do we play this game? Oh God, I hate this game. What do you have to say about that? Is it kind of like a game between men and women? Who is tougher? Who can?
Not for me. I don't look at it that way. I mean, a lot of the fights I found myself in have really sometimes don't have anything to do with her. I'm just dealing with other stuff, and it's an irritation to be interrupted. Why are you?
Because you're going like this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's an irritation to me to be interrupted while I'm trying to process other things that are going on that I'm trying to figure out, and then I'm being asked to do something that's interrupting my processing, and I get irritated. Or if I'm tired, I get irritated very easily.
So that goes back to the box.
Yeah, because I'm like out here trying to think and figure things out, and there's an intrusion. There's an intruder in my brain. And, men usually don't like intruders in their brain. They don't like that.
But the Bible says husbands should love their wives as Jesus loved the church.
And it also says Jesus withdrew often lonely places to pray.
But Jesus,
so he needed his alone time.
Yeah,
too.
but Jesus also.
We're almost fighting.
No, this is really good.
Yeah.
It is good for us to disagree, and it is good for people to see us disagreeing in a video that has to do with fights. Because John and I are both very opinionated people. And I think that's part of why when we fight intensely, because we're both very set in our ways. I think marrying at the age we did also has an impact, right? We were both very well, our minds were formed, our opinions were formed. Although I would say that he's probably been one of the people that has had the most determining influence in my life in all the changes I've made since from age 30 till now that I'm 51. But just going back to this is something that I always tell John, and it goes both ways, and it's all about denial. It is good for me to understand that he's a man and that he has nothing boxes. It is good for me to understand that. But it is also important for him sometimes to get out of that box, whatever box he's in, so that he can take care of his bride when his bride is hurting. Right? I mean, sometimes fights go unnecessarily longer because neither of the party is willing to break the silence or to say, I was wrong. And that boils down to pride. Right? And we've counseled so many couples, and they say things like, I'm not going to put up with that, or he did this to me, or she did this to me. And I'm always reminded of what, when our marriage was going through a very tough time, when JC was a baby, and we found a therapist, a Christian therapist, to help us. And I remember I was really angry at John. We had just been accumulating a lot of stuff, and I wasn't applying 1 Corinthians 13, right? That says that love keeps no record of wrong. I was doing a very good job at keeping record of wrong, and I think women are very good at keeping a record of wrong. I was very good, and I was keeping that record of wrong, and so I went into that first session really, really angry. And I remember Mary Beth, our therapist, she said, Jenny, you are going to have to make a choice. You are going to either have to choose to either win this fight or save your marriage. I don't think you can do both. And I had to make a decision at that point. What was more important for me? Save our relationship. We had a 5-year-old little girl. We had a 3-month-old baby boy. And I loved him. But I loved him, but I was very angry. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, right? You can love someone with all of your heart and still be very angry. And what Mary Beth said is, decide, choose. What's more important for you, to win the fight, to prove that you're right, or to save your relationship? And at the end of the day, for me, it all boiled down to pride. I had to choose to let my pride go so that I could work on our relationship. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think marriage is a marathon.
It is.
And when you go through a marathon, sometimes you hit what they call the wall.
Yeah.
And you either collapse at the wall or somehow you find a second wind. Mm-hmm. And sometimes there's multiple second winds in marriage. And, you know, you feel like you're going to fall, collapse. And somehow you find the strength from whatever source. You know, whether it's God or somebody that gives you advice, or you see the pain you're causing someone else, and if you're a sensitive person, you don't want to do that. So, I mean, you know, and it's going to be that way till the end, you know. And, you know, after a certain amount of years, I've always been surprised that people sometimes who've been married a long time and then they get a divorce. And it's like, really, you want to throw away everything, all the years, you know, that have just been a waste, you know? And it's very sad, I think, when that happens. So, you know, you look back on your years and hopefully you see a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
You know, you've raised kids, hopefully they're good kids. And, you know, that's not a minor thing. Mm-hmm. You know, if you can get along good enough to raise great children, then there must have been something right there, right? You must have had something good going on. Even if you were frustrated with things going on sometimes, things have been working out better than you thought they were.
Yeah.
And so, you know, sometimes we have to sit down and evaluate that things aren't as bad as you think they are.
Yeah.
You know, and look at the other person. It's like, appreciate all the things they've done for you, even if you're angry with them right now. Mm-hmm. Just sit and think, well, you know, they really have done this for me and that for me, and been kind to me, maybe when I didn't deserve it. And you know, sometimes you just got to make a checklist of like all the good things, because the one bad thing always seems so overwhelming.
Exactly, when it's happening.
And it's just, it seems like this is it. This is the last straw. Mm-hmm. So you got to slow down and evaluate and like, okay, you know, there's more good than bad here.
I love what you just said about slowing down, because Astrid Victoria is 16 now, and I think she's a little more aware of our fights.
She'll be 17 in a month and a half.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. And she's been a lot more aware of our differences as she's grown older. And something that I've told her, I've said, honey, if I can give you, there's a lot that I can tell you about marriage, but it's one advice I can give you is hold on. Hold on, because there are days where I feel I can kill your father, but then 1 or 2 hours later, or 1 or 2 days later, I am as in love with him as I ever was. I can't live without him. And I just look back and I'm like, just 2 days ago, I thought this was it. I thought we couldn't possibly overcome this obstacle. And I think what you said about slowing down is so important. Because sometimes when we make decisions in haste, when we make decisions when we're mad, when our emotions are boiling, we can make a lot of stupid mistakes if we don't slow down. I think this is a perfect opportunity to talk about styles, because John and I have two completely different styles in how we deal with conflict. And how we deal with conflict and the difference in our styles can make a big, big difference and can really drive a wedge between people. John, you want to tell them a little bit about how you grew up a little bit, kind of the Cliff Notes version, and how you learned to deal with conflict.
Well, if you grow up in a house where at least one parent is constantly yelling and screaming all the time, you just want to go away. You just want to get away from conflict. And, you know, I saw my other parent shrivel up into a fetal position, basically, because they were beaten up verbally and physically sometimes by the other person. So you had the super angry person, and you had the basically destroyed person, you know, who couldn't fight back anymore, and really was just waiting to die, pretty much, you know. So, and that's eventually what happened, you know, that my mom was gone, and she's at peace now. My dad lived on, another 7 years or so, and you know, he did accept Christ at the end of his life on his deathbed. He actually had my sister call me, you know, to pray with him on the phone. He woke up out of a coma. That was a miracle. My mom, Jenny and I prayed with her as she was dying of cancer. She couldn't even talk anymore. And yeah, I believe she's in heaven. You know, all she could do was nod as we talked to her about the Lord, and you know, and I think she would receive the Lord at the end. You know, but what a waste, you know, to go through your whole life
without God.
I mean, the thief on the cross, thank God he got saved, but what a waste, a whole life wasted. Now they're in heaven, and they'll get to know God more and more and grow as spiritual beings forever and ever.
They have the whole eternity.
But here, it was kind of a waste.
You know,
it made a lot of misery.
I've always thought that people that wait until the very last minute to acknowledge God and they make it to heaven, I've always thought there's a lot of regret. Like they're probably in front of God and they're like, I barely made it, but then they look back and they're like, oh my gosh, what a waste. I wasted most of my life on earth thinking that you weren't real, or thinking that you didn't have my best interest at heart, whatever. But that's material for another time. This is what you get when you talk as ministers to talk about anything. We just go on tangents. But going back to the way you were raised and the verbal, physical, and emotional abuse, you chose a very specific way that made you feel safe when you were in the face of danger or conflict. And what was that? What would you do? How would you handle it? Conflict.
Go into my man cave and be alone.
Yep. Some people would call that the ostrich, where basically you dig a hole and you put your head in that hole. Now, in my case, I grew up, I was exposed to some degree of abuse, but it was nothing compared to what John had to deal with. And in my case, I was the oldest of 7 brothers and sisters in a Latin American country, and I learned to be a fighter. And my fighting spirit and words and behavior were always rewarded. Because I advanced very fast in life, I got better paying jobs, and I eventually became an attorney which professionally then trained me to argue and to take the world, by its horns. And so, although I felt that I was much better than the person that had raised me, I didn't use profanity. I didn't, I wasn't like loudly yelling or stuff like that. I just had and still do to a degree, a very fighting, aggressive way to deal with conflict. I like to deal with conflict head on, right? That's the way to say it? Head on?
Yeah.
And he deals with conflict by just going away. And so...
Well, it's not just going away. I want to try and smooth it over
Exactly.
as quickly as I can, and I don't hold grudges. I get angry really quick, and sometimes it can be explosive.
Mm-hmm.
But then it blows up to me. Okay, it's done. Let's move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I know not everybody's like that.
Yeah.
It festers for a while, but for me, it just blows up, and then okay, we're done.
Yeah, and in my case, I want to go deep. I want to go deep, and I want to dig it. I want to pull all the ugly out, and I want to deal with it. And John, that's just not his zone of comfort. Now, I am not saying that the way I handle conflict is better than his way of handling conflict, or vice versa. The truth is that by the time we all get to marriage or our first relationship, the psychologists say that our characters are shaped in the first 6 years of life, like solidly shaped. And so anything that happens after that is significant, it almost takes like a traumatic experience or like an encounter with Christ or almost losing your marriage to like transform you to your core. And so the issue here is not that the way he handles conflict is wrong or mine is, it's just the way it is. That is the way we handle conflict. And I don't think that we were aware of how much that was impacting our ability to resolve our conflict until we almost lost each other, because we loved each other, and I think we knew that, and we even spoke about that, but our marriage was not thriving. And the reason it wasn't thriving is because we had a complete opposite way to handle conflict, and we were not meeting each other in the middle. Make sense?
Yeah.
So we had to learn that. And you're never going to be able to change your partner. Your partner has to change himself. And in my case, when we went to therapy, when we went to see Mary Beth, I knew I had to change me. I knew I had no power, no control over John. I had to change me. I had to work on me. So I started working on me, and I read a lot of books, and I learned a lot of things about boundaries, emotional intelligence, conflict management, which, by the way, I had read some of them like for my professional career, but for some reason I have not learned to transfer those to marriage. And I am not perfect. I've grown a lot. I'm not perfect. I'm very, very much still in process. But boy, that was a big eye opener for me. Understanding that. Well, going back to the song. Says, throw open the doors. You know my heart is yours. What are we waiting for? Yeah. What I like about this phrase is that it's just one move. Throw open the door. Mm-hmm. And I imagine that I imagine those cowboys stories where the cowboy walks into the bar and there's these doors that you just kind of walk through. And they open up like that. That's the image I have. And for me, sometimes that is all it takes. That first step of resolving a conflict, of making up, of going back again into agreement as a couple. It just takes someone to make the decision to throw open the door. Right? He says, what are we waiting for? You know, sometimes that's really what needs to happen. One of us has to say, we have got to throw open the door. Make sense? It says, you know my heart is yours. You know, and sometimes we just forget that. We forget that, you know, I have this love box, and everybody makes fun of my love box, but in my love box I keep most of the emails that he and I exchanged when we were dating. I keep cards, notes that he's written to me, and I love going to that box because it's a permanent reminder, as he was saying, it's a permanent reminder of the good times. My wedding pictures, my wedding videos, is a permanent reminder of the memories we've built and what is it that brought us together in the first place. All right? Now, I'm going to let you tackle this one.
Okay, how long does this go on? Because we don't want to keep the people too long.
It's actually a very short song.
Okay.
We're just talking too much.
Okay.
But you seem a little impatient.
So, what part of
Men
that?
are impatient.
Yeah.
So I'll read it to you.
I'm ready to go to bed too.
Yes, you are. But we've made them wait for these videos, so we're going to go for it.
Okay.
That's this one. So this part says, let's be pioneers.
We'll build our home in the great unknown. Yeah, let's be pioneers.
So what is that to you as it relates to being a married couple in a world where marriage is more and more devalued? Like, people don't think that this is not necessarily the route everybody is taking.
Well, I mean, you're making decisions and choices that other people are not making, and you know, hopefully they're for the best. Because if you keep going, then you're blazing a trail. A pioneer blazes a trail. They go, as Star Trek would say, boldly go where no man has gone before. And you know, each marriage is different and it's unique, and the people are unique. The kids and the marriage and the family are unique, and you know, I don't think any two marriages are the same. So we're kind of setting off on our own in our own direction, even though there's a lot of similarities between other marriages or families, but there's a lot of differences too. So, you know, people can look at us and say, okay, they did it this way. Let's borrow from what they did.
Exactly.
That helps us, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, we went our own way, and people can look at us going down the road and watch what was good and watch what was bad, and you know, learn something.
Absolutely. I think that every couple has to blaze their own trail, and what we're just giving you is our experience and our ideas on what has worked for us. But the other way that I look at this phrase is, it takes a lot of courage in this world, in this day and age, to be a committed couple, to be faithful to one another, and to not get a divorce. John and I are both highly intelligent, we're both competent, and the truth of the matter is, until he was 36 and until I was 29, we lived without each other. So we can live without each other. Like, we have the financial and emotional ability to live, and by live I mean L-I-V-E, without each other. It takes courage, it takes determination, it takes commitment to God and to each other to stay together. And I think that as a couple, you have to decide to be different, to not go the way everybody is going. The easy route is divorce. The easy route is to walk away from one another. Now, of course, if you're being beaten up You know, if your life is in danger, we're definitely not advocating for you to stay in a situation like that. I don't believe that that is God's will. But being together, staying together, takes hard work. Anybody can dress up really nicely and walk down the aisle and look all gooey eyes, but when the rubber really meets the road is when you start doing your life, when nobody's celebrating you, and then you start just facing the problems of life. And I think this is like saying, you know, let's be like the original pioneers, the people that actually went into the unknown and chose not to give up until they established something beautiful. And I think as a couple, when we make our vows, we're making a commitment that we are going to build a home, and this world has become more and more of an unknown territory for couples, right? So yeah. So we're almost done. Sometimes couples can get out of tune.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other brother. But this says, there's a song that we sang on our honeymoon. I remember all the words, but forgot the tune. Why are we out of tune? So my question to you is, why do you think that throughout a marriage a couple can get out of tune? We still remember the words, like we know intellectually what we need to be doing to maintain the relationship, but we seem to be out of tune. What kind of things make us as a couple be out of tune with each other?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of the time one parent takes responsibility for certain things in the marriage, and the other person is busy with something else. You know, maybe one works more than the other, one's with the kids more, you know, and you just, you're pulled in different directions, and you know, life is busy. Maybe you don't spend enough time together. You don't even know each other as well as you used to, and you know, things like that pile up, you know, over time, and you know, you get interested in certain things that maybe the other person's not interested in, and you know, they feel a distance in that sense, you know. So yeah, there's a lot of things that can, you know, lead to growing apart, as they would say.
Yeah, life will always get in the way, and Satan too, right? Because we have an enemy, and he specializes in dividing and hurting, and you know. That's the other brother.
So we both married?
He said them with their wives.
Oh, okay.
It's all about couples, you know, and the distance, and how really being a couple in this world takes like you're really blazing a trail because it's not the most common thing. Right? That's right. And I love this part. It says, let's forgive and let's forgive again. Marriage is one act of forgiveness after the other. And I like to say, I think we learned this from Gomber, but it's really a basic premise in any healthy marriage is, as 1 Corinthians 13 says, love keeps no record of wrong. And every day you have to hit that reset button. And for a lot of young people, that might be a foreign concept. But when John and I were growing up, we had VCRs, okay? And when you were doing the VCR, you hit that reset button to put the tape on 0. And that reset would put the tape on 0, and it would allow you to know exactly how many minutes from the beginning you were in a particular video. And this reset button is to take you back to 0. And every day in a marriage, you have to hit that reset button. Like, I'm going to use what happened yesterday to remind me how not to do it today, but we have to choose not to use it against our partner. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a lot easier said than done, right? Mm-hmm. Easier to say, hard to practice. Mm-hmm. Very, very hard to practice. But I think that forgiving and forgiving again is the only way to go.
Well, if you're going to stay together, that is the only way to go. Mm-hmm. So if you're an unforgiving person, you're doomed.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
Yeah.
You know, so you have a choice to make. You know, and Jesus said, if you forgive other men's your sins will be forgiven. If you don't forgive, your Father won't forgive your sins. You know, so it's like you have a choice. It even affects your relationship with God. You know, if you're a Christian and it's a Christian marriage, it's like unforgiveness is the worst thing that exists out there. It's really one of the worst things, because if you don't forgive, it's going to mess up every relationship you have.
Yeah.
You know, because you're always going to be on the defensive. You're always going to be looking for, what's going to happen to me next, and you're not going to be able to get close to anybody.
Yeah,
and that's really what it is. It's all about, you know, if you can't forgive, you're going to have walls up, and you're never going to be close to anybody. You know?
And the thing of unforgiveness and fights is that you're going to be fighting about this specific issue, but if you have unforgiveness, you're going to bring up the past. You're going to bring up when you did this to me, when you did that to me, when you did that to me. And so it's kind of unfair, right? Because the other person thinks that you've already overcome that issue, but if you're bringing it up, you're kind of rehashing it and rehashing it. Mm-hmm. And I personally learned that I was very good at rehashing my record of wrong in prayer. Mm-hmm. Check this out. I could get on my knees and use my time of prayer to remind God and myself in the process of everything that in my estimation John had done to me or was doing wrong. Well, of course, if you keep rehashing it and revisiting and revisiting and revisiting, it's going to be very hard for you to forget and to forgive. I did not even know what forgiveness was. And then as I started reading more and reading more about it, I discovered that forgiving is to deal with something and then try your best not to bring it up again. Because if you keep bringing it up again, whether it's in prayer, in conversation, or whatever, you are going, every time you bring it up, it takes a hold in your heart. That's what I've discovered. And I'm still working on it. I mean, I hope you guys know that we're not saying any of this as people that have achieved it. We're still working on it.
No.
Definitely not.
No, that's not it.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And the last part of this last paragraph before the last one says, let's forgive and let's forgive again. I'm reaching out to my sweetest friend. Can we start again? And I think that goes right back to the forgiven and the trying to start every day as a new day. Can we start again? I mean, how many of us would do so much better in our relationships if we could embrace the concept of let's start afresh? It's a new day, let's give each other a chance. Because the truth be told, he has as much to forgive me as I have to forgive him. And we need to give each other a fresh start, just like God gives us a fresh start every day, right? Right? And so I just want to close this, and we're going to come back another day to go into more details about like language, expressing feelings, paraphrasing, effective listening. But right now, I just want to close this video again with the beautiful words of the chorus of the song. It says, "Throw open the doors. You know my heart is yours. What are we waiting for? What are you waiting for?" I mean, let's just decide, guys, decide that we are going to throw open the doors of our hearts so that we can save and cultivate and nurture our sweetest friend. You are my sweetest friend.
Really?
Most of the time, anyway.
I don't think I have any other friends. Nobody else will put up with me, so she's pretty much it. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, I love this guy. I really, really do. And we're still working not only our salvation with fear and trembling, but our marriage with fear and trembling. We want to say that if two broken people like us that had a very difficult start in life and that are still, bearing the consequences and still kind of licking the wounds of our upbringing, if we have been able to make it this far with God's help, you can too, right?
Yep.
We wanna leave you with a message of hope. There is hope. You can start afresh. It's just a matter of you making a decision. And if we can help you in any way, you can leave your comments. We'd love to engage you in conversation, and we'd love to pray for you. Anything else?
No, I think she said it all. So, nothing like this.
Let's be pioneers.
Yep.
Let's be pioneers. Bye, guys.
Okay, see ya. Bye.